January the 2nd, our rainbow billboard outside celebrating the variety of relationships in our world, including same-sex couples, was defaced by a scripture-quoting critic who believes that voicing our opinion on our billboard on our church land can't be tolerated. Such intolerance of others' opinions was evident also in Dunedin on January the 13th, when the pro-euthanasia campaigner Sean Davison received a brick through his window and, ironically, an accompanying death threat. The note said, "Leave God's laws or be struck dead." Such a strong disagreement with an opinion is very different from the intolerance exhibited by destroying property and vandalism. When actions such as these are taken in the name of religion, then they not only do a disservice to all who follow that religion, but they help create a climate of timidity where speech is self-censored for fear of offending those who can't tolerate any opinion save their own. Many churches seem to have embraced timidity as part of their ethos, believing it more pastoral and caring to evade or fence it on contentious issues, rather than speak out, express a view, and thus encourage debate. When passivity is extolled as wisdom, we have taken as churches another step along the road to irrelevancy. 2,500 years ago, the Book of Jonah was written in and for a time of timidity and intolerance. The defeat of the Jewish army and the subsequent captivity in Babylon was blamed upon those of their forebears who had married non-Jewish spouses, thus introducing alien and foreign practices. Yes, we're all familiar with the foreigner is to blame. When Ezra and Nehemiah led the people out of Babylon and back to Jerusalem, they proposed, in a climate of xenophobic piety, a statute that required every Jew married to a foreign spouse to divorce and banish the non-Jewish partner. It further required that any half-breed children born of that union be banished along with the non-Jewish mate. The enforcement of this statute moved Judah into one of the uglier phases of her history. Racial purists organized vigilante squads. Bloodlines were checked. Tensions ran high as the Inquisition tore families apart. Judah was to be for Jews only. Then there appeared on the streets of Jerusalem a story, a parable, penned anonymously, that would theologically challenge this destructive religious intolerance. It was a story about a man, Jonah, who was fixed in his prejudice, and a God who wasn't. It included Jonah being swallowed by a whale, a symbol for the need to take time to think about what we are doing and why. The Book of Jonah, therefore, is not an historical account, but the prejudice and the challenge to it were real. It's an in-house story, a minority of Jews criticizing the majority, saying in effect, we are too narrow, too limiting of God. We need to open our doors wide to the strange and the stranger. As the Rabbi Jesus would say 500 years later, let the wheat and the tares grow together, and then let God judge what is pure and impure, right and wrong, rather than us. Tolerance is not just some namby-pamby liberal mush. It's an attitude of humility before God, acknowledging that we don't have all the answers, and that we are ignorant of many things, and frequently arrogant with our ignorance. Sometimes the answers we need will come from those we distrust and even despise. Tolerance is also an attitude that says wisdom is served by hearing views contrary to our own, disputing with those views, and encouraging others to make up their own minds. Wisdom isn't served by timidity. Our last Christmas billboard was a comment on the humanity of Mary. It was an artistic and theological interpretation. It was not the only interpretation, nor was it more right than other interpretations. Among those who disliked it, however, were people who believed that there is only one right way to think about Mary, and to say otherwise is to both disrespect her and them. Furthermore, a subgroup of that one right way decided to label our interpretation as satanic and demonic. There's a dangerous history in demonizing one's opponents, as, for example, the Nazis did to the Jews. One must always be careful in criticizing another's viewpoint to acknowledge both their humanity and their right to disagree, even if they don't acknowledge yours. I pray that we at St. Matthew's will never falter in expressing our views despite threats and vandalism, despite the prevailing religious climate of timidity, in the hope that the values of mutual respect, intellectual humility, and the pursuit of truth will predominate. Last week I heard of a pacifist vicar in a country parish in Kent, England, during World War II. The parish had a number of former military personnel in the congregation who were not particularly tolerant of pacifism or the vicar, nor, needless to say, was the national mindset at the time. The vicar's popularity was at such an all-time low that he sent his letter of resignation to the then Archbishop of Canterbury, William Temple, citing pastoral breakdown. Well, the Archbishop wrote back, refusing to accept his resignation. Although not a pacifist himself, Temple stated that the Anglican Church would be poorly served if everyone thought the same, and the pacifist voice, particularly in wartime, was not heard. Further, he encouraged the vicar to seek pastoral support for himself by joining the local Quaker fellowship. Evidently, the Archbishop saw no problem with being both Anglican and Quaker. This story was related to me by Canon Paul Ostreicher, who, after writing in the Church Times of his dual allegiance to both Anglicanism and Quakerism, received a copy of Archbishop Temple's letter from the son of that Kentish vicar.